Drew Brees on the Saints offense, how it may look under new offensive coordinator Klint Kubiak. This is from the Saints News Network. We get to hear from the greatest Saints quarterback of all time on how he thinks the new look offense with Klint Kubiak's tutelage may look for the next season. I'm excited to hear this. Let's get right into it, shall we?
Obviously, the Saints moved on from longtime coordinator Pete Carmichael, a guy who you had
Get him out
such
of here.
great success with,
He's a scrub.
replacing him with Klint Kubiak.
Yes.
From your viewpoint, do you like the way the Saints' offensive personnel meshes with what you know to be Klint Kubiak's scheme coming into New Orleans?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think what goes into that decision is number one, how does the quarterback mesh with the system?
Yeah, I mean that's for sure the number one thing, especially when we have a franchise quarterback with a $150 million price tag. The question is, how well does Derek Carr or whatever quarterback it is, if it's a different team, but in the same situation, how does Derek Carr mesh with the new offensive coordinator, his scheme and what he wants to do? That is priority number one. Kubiak, he does have to implement his system, his strategy, his scheme, but he also needs to maximize Carr. He has to maximize what we get out of Derek Carr for the next season or two, or however long Carr's here. That, Carr, the Saints offense is only going to go as far as Derek Carr. I mean, that's just how quarterback is now in the NFL. That's how that's how impactful the position is. If Kubiak can manage to get a lot out of Carr, the Saints offense can be good, especially if we keep the core guys. If we keep Olave and Alvin Kamara and bring in some other players, whether it's Brock Bowers or players like that in the draft or free agency and trades and whatnot, the Saints can be good. We have a setup with good skill position players, good playmakers, and if Carr can be somewhere between the 8th and 12th best quarterback in the NFL, I think the Saints are legit. If the Saints can do that, and Dennis Allen can get back to his roots on the defensive side of the ball and focus on the defense, if that's what we're looking at, there's no reason the Saints can't be. Now, I'm going to say this, and I said this last season, and ooh, baby, did it burn me. There's no reason the Saints can't be a double-digit NFC South champion playoff team. Do we have all the pieces in play to challenge the San Franciscos and those teams for the NFC? Maybe not at this exact moment, but if we go get some players in the draft or free agency and shore up some problem areas that we have, we'd be well on our way.
The Saints are very committed to Derek Carr and his skill set, right? So you're trying to find an offense and a coordinator who would be a great fit with your QB. And then you start looking at the personnel that you have and just how you want to build your team. You're not just operating in these silos of, offense and defense, and we're kind of doing whatever the heck we want on each side. You're definitely thinking about how those two work together.
Let me go back to the Carr thing, because I think that's important. He's saying you want a coordinator who can kind of build off of Carr's skill set. A good thing about Carr and the future is that Carr's skill set is pretty similar to a lot of quarterbacks. Carr is not like Justin Fields, for example. So, like our new quarterback coach, Janoko, he worked with Justin Fields. It's much more difficult to build a system around Justin Fields and a unique skill set like that than it is to build a system around people like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, because those prototypical quarterback skill sets, are around a lot, right? So theoretically, if Klint Kubiak can build a system to get the most out of Derek Carr's skill set, that system, that strategy should translate to a bunch of different players, whether it's Jake Haener, whether it's if we go draft a Bo Nix or whoever, it should translate to a bigger scheme, a bigger system. It's not surprising that San Francisco was able to get the same production out of Brock Purdy that they got out of Jimmy Garoppolo and vice versa. It's because the system is replicatable, if that's a word. And that's good, right? We don't want this hyper shrunken down, super unique system that only fits one skill set unless we have someone like Lamar Jackson. Someone like that who they exist in a very unique system. Lamar Jackson's system isn't going to work for Patrick Mahomes, right? It's not going to work for Brock Purdy. So I'm glad we have Derek Carr in this time, because I think it's a great quarterback to use as your launching point for your new system if you're Klint Kubiak.
And play complementary style of football. And so I'm sure that was a big part of the decision as well. Kubiak has an excellent reputation. I think it's going to be a style of offense, probably similar to what you see with like the Dolphins, the Niners. A little bit of this tree of this West Coast offense that's the out.
It'll be similar, but it won't be the same. So a lot of people get lost in that idea that if a coordinator is from a head coach, then it's just going to be the same, right? I've heard a lot of people say that the Saints offense is just going to be like the Niners offense, but that's not really how it works. You know, a coordinator, they come from a tree, they take a little bit, and then they go off of it and kind of utilize it and to make a new tree, a new plant, a beautiful little shrub. I mean, Mike McDaniel's offense in Miami, drastically different than how San Francisco's offense looks, which is drastically different than how Sean McVay's offense looks in Los Angeles. So I think it'll be a blend of all of that. If you look at our skill, and those three teams have very different skill position players. I mean, if you look at how those three teams are built, the Rams are built differently roster-wise than the Niners. The Niners, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk are very different than Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams. Then you go to Miami, even more different, where Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert or A-Chain or whoever ends up being the running back, they're a different skill set than the other two teams. I think the Saints are they're probably closer to the Rams, I think, in skill set. I mean, it depends on how you use Alvin Kamara. He's the biggest, because Alvin Kamara can be very similar. I would say it's definitely not the Dolphins. I would say it's more similar to the Rams with a little bit of San Francisco. Because I guess you could say that McCaffrey and Kamara are incredibly similar as far as how they're used. And then if you really wanted to get controversial yet brave, you could say Taysom Hill is kind of similar to Deebo Samuel and how they're used, where they can be running backs, they can be wide receivers. You know, they're kind of all over the place. They're a mismatch. There's a matchup nightmare. You're trying to get them on mismatches. So we're probably not going to be just the tried and true play action, run the ball style that the Rams are. The Rams are much more of a style of let's try and run Kyron Williams 25 times, do play action off of that, and then see if we can get Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp in space. We're probably not exactly that because of Kamara's pass catching ability, but I don't think we're San Francisco where it's this like wheeling and dealing. There's motion all over the place. Who knows who's where. You know, that's probably San Francisco. It's kind of unique that we're using those two because I think San Francisco's offense is probably the most complex offense in the NFL. Just how it looks, how it runs, the amount of pre-snap motion, the amount of players moving all over the place, pre-snap and during the play to get other people open. We see that all the time with how Kyle uses certain routes to free up people in space. So in a way, their motion continues even after the snap. I don't think we're that, or we will be that, but I also don't think we will be the more simplistic Sean McVay version, which is much more of that run the ball, play action, one read, get it to the player.
Outside zone run game, it's play action, and then it's the short intermediate passing game. It becomes an extension of the run game. So it'll be fun to see how it evolves. But I think the Saints have great personnel, and I think Derek Carr's a great guy to execute.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly, let's listen to that last 10 seconds ish because I agree 100%. This is how I see it kind of playing.
Run game, it's play action.
Hold on a second.
A little bit of this tree of this West Coast offense. That's the outside zone run game. It's play action, and then it's the short intermediate passing game. It becomes an extension of the run game. So it'll be fun to see how it evolves. But I think the Saints have great personnel, and I think Derek Carr's a great guy to execute.
Yeah, that's how I see it. So I think it's going to be a lot of that short intermediate passing game. I think the run will be kind of an extension of that play action, that short intermediate, and they'll both complement each other. I think Carr is a fantastic quarterback for that. Carr has proven he's a smart, efficient passer. I think in the system, if he understands the system or if he understands the defensive system he's facing, he's been good. His best games are when he has seemed to be in the most control. That's when I think Carr is at his best. Carr is at his best when he's just operating in that system. Very Brock Purdy-esque. very Kirk Cousins-esque. If you let Derek Carr do what he wants to do, what he's prepared to do, what he's planning to do, if you let him do that, you're probably good to go. If Derek Carr has to improvise, if Derek Carr has to get out of the system, if Derek Carr has to throw you back into it, that's when this season he's looked a little shaky, a little wobbly. So I love the idea of Carr picking up this offense and doing it. I think if you took Derek Carr and you put him in Los Angeles or put him, and this is a great way to think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes I even surprise myself. If you took Derek Carr and put him in Los Angeles or put him in San Francisco or put him in Miami, how do you think he would do? I think he'd be very successful. I think he'd be very successful in those spots. And that's a good thing for us because that's what he's going to be asked to do. Those are the offenses he's going to be asked to replicate is versions of those. So if he can do well theoretically in those spots, then I can almost see why he wouldn't be a good quarterback to run what Kubiak wants to run. So I'm really optimistic about this. I mean, I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to see all this take place. I'm ready to see, Carr at practice and training camps and OTAs, and I want to see Kubiak's offense, and I want to see the plays we're running. I mean, we're a long way away. We're actually as far away from the NFL season as we possibly can. We're filming this right after the Super Bowl, so we're a long way away, but I'm thrilled, very optimistic for how this offense will look and how I think it'll be a new lease on life for a lot of the players. I think it'll be a new lease on life for Carr. I think it'll be a new lease on life for some of the aging players who we've had here for a long time who seem to be kind of disgruntled at what was going on and how the Saints were operating. Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, if Michael Thomas is back. But those guys, they seem to be kind of frustrated. They seem to be discouraged about how the offense was being run. So a fresh start is a great way to get rid of all that negativity, get a fresh start, and if it works, and we're back to the days of the Saints being an innovative, evolving offense, and we have a good defense, I'm telling y'all, next season could be a lot of fun in the Superdome, a lot of fun for the Saints. I'm excited for it. So let me know in the comments below what you think. If you what you think about what Drew said, if you kind of see it the same way, or if you're hesitant, if you're worried about the offense and worried about how the season is going to be. Let me know in the comments below, one way or the other. We'll see you in the next video.